All right, let's jump straight into this explainer. We're heading to the Aravalli Hills of Rajasthan to uncover the mystery of Bangar Fort. Now, this is a place so legendary and honestly so steeped in dread that even the government formally warns you to stay away. I mean, just imagine an entire 16th century city. At its absolute peak, we're talking over 9,000 homes, a royal palace 7 stories high, bustling markets, the whole shebang. But today, it sits completely abandoned. And here's the kicker. Bizarrely, not a single house in this sprawling ruin has a roof. Local lore insists this isn't just some historical ruin. They say it's a literal supernatural trap.
Now, you might think this is just some tourist trap prank, but no. That is a very real, official warning board placed right at the main gate by the Archaeological Survey of India. And this board really sets the stage for a tragic and super famous local story. So, as the legend goes, 3 friends decided to completely ignore this rule. Believing the ghost stories were just, silly myths, they snuck into the pitch-black fort after sunset with just a single flashlight between them. Well, in the heavy darkness, one friend slipped and fell deep into a dry well. The other 2 managed to frantically pull him out and rushed him to their car, desperate to get to a hospital. But before they could even get there, their car mysteriously crashed on a sharp turn, and all 3 died on the spot.
The locals completely swear by this chilling claim. They attribute that fatal crash not to just bad luck, but to the fort actually collecting its grim toll for breaking the rules. So today, you and I are going to play detective. We're going to investigate whether the restless spirits of this roofless, ruined city are truly responsible for these horrors, or if something completely different, and maybe even more fascinating, is actually at play here. Section 1, Terrifying Tales. Let's look at the myths of Bangar. To understand the sheer panic surrounding this place, we first have to look at the 2 tragic legends that supposedly doomed the city forever. Legend number 1 states that before the fort was even built, an ascetic named Baba Balunov lived there. He allowed the king to build the city on one strict condition: the shadow of the palace must never fall upon his home. Simple enough, right? For generations, this was respected, until a younger king came along and built the palace up to 7 stories high. The shadow touched the ascetic's home, and boom, a devastating curse wiped out the entire city. The second legend is even more terrifying. It involves a dark magic practitioner named Tantric Singhia. He fell obsessively in love with the famously beautiful Princess Ratnavati. Knowing she'd literally never accept him, he tried to bewitch her perfume with a black magic love potion. But the clever princess realized the trick and threw the perfume bottle onto a massive boulder. Well, the enchanted boulder, drawn to the Tantric, rolled right over and crushed him to death. With his dying breath, he cursed the entire fort, dooming everyone inside to death without any hope of reincarnation. Section 2, Paranormal Claims. And wow, the internet is absolutely flooded with ghostly encounters. We're talking bizarre encounters that just totally defy logic. People report hearing the distinct sounds of women crying, the breaking of glass spangles, and invisible figures following them through the ruins. Even massive Bollywood crews haven't been spared from this. During the filming of the movie Karan Arjun, sudden rainstorms inexplicably halted production out of nowhere, and actress Mamata Kulkarni reportedly behaved as if she was actually possessed by a spirit during a dance sequence. Though to be fair, acting is a pretty stressful job. In another really famous account, a man who stayed near the fort reported seeing a mysterious black cat that somehow followed his car for literally 100 kilometers after he drove away. But for sure, the most unsettling story comes from a journalist whose perfectly functional scooter just completely died outside the fort. The tank was full, the lights worked perfectly, but the engine was totally dead. Out of nowhere, a mysterious stranger appeared, stared at the bike, and without even touching it, miraculously started the engine. As he walked away, he delivered this exact terrifying message: "They want you. You know who." But hold on a second, because here is a massive twist that completely flips the script. There is absolutely zero verifiable historical record of Princess Ratnavati or the dark wizard Tantric Singhia ever existing. I mean, no inscriptions, no contemporary documents, literally nothing. The entire foundation of Bangar's most famous ghost story is based on characters that, historically speaking, are entirely fictional. Wild, right? Section 3, The Science of Fear. If it's not ghosts, what is making rational people panic? The answer is actually pure science. The first culprit? It's an invisible frequency of exactly 19 hertz. This was famously discovered by a British engineer named Vic Tandy back in the 1980s. Tandy was working late in his lab when he suddenly felt freezing cold, started sweating, and saw this gray, ghostly shadow right out of the corner of his eye. Terrified, he fled, but the very next day, he realized a newly installed exhaust fan was emitting a silent sound wave at exactly 19 hertz. When he turned that fan off, the ghost disappeared completely. He had successfully debunked a haunting in his very own lab. So this 19 hertz frequency is what we call infrasound. It's a sound wave so incredibly low that human ears literally cannot hear it,
but human bodies can physically feel it as a vibration. It actually induces dizziness, extreme anxiety, and triggers this primal feeling that you're being watched. Now apply this to Bangar. The wind constantly howling through those roofless, crumbling stone corridors naturally creates this exact terrifying infrasound. Plus, the fort sits right in seismic zone 4, meaning minor, imperceptible earth tremors frequently send low-frequency vibrations straight through the ground and into the bodies of anyone visiting.
But hey, sound is only half of the equation here. The other half is suggestibility. A famous 2008 experiment at Goldsmiths University in London proved this perfectly. Researchers put people in a completely empty, boring white room, but they told them the room was haunted. The result? Over 20% of the participants reported feeling a ghostly presence, and some felt absolute terror. Simply because their brains were primed to expect a haunted experience, their bodies physically manifested those feelings. Add to that a little psychological phenomenon called pareidolia. This is the evolutionary tendency of the human brain to desperately search for familiar patterns, specifically faces and human figures, in totally random shapes. So when your highly suggestible brain is wandering through dark, crumbling pillars at twilight, pareidolia kicks in aggressively. It automatically turns normal shadows, broken rocks, and dark corners into terrifying ghosts and lurking figures. Which brilliantly illustrates the actual truth about that official ASI warning board we talked about at the beginning. It is absolutely not there to protect you from ghosts. The fort is barely 50 kilometers away from the massive Sariska Tiger Reserve. At night, Bengal tigers, leopards, and hyenas frequently roam these ruins. And here's the absolute kicker. The calls of wild hyenas sound exactly like women crying or screaming in the distance. Seriously, so much for the ghosts, right? Even the monkeys jumping in the trees sound like unseen footsteps. The board is there to stop tourists from being attacked by wild predators or from getting crushed by centuries-old collapsing walls in the pitch dark. Section 4. Historical Tragedy. So what actually happened to this once thriving city? The truth is a devastating mixture of political decline and a lethal natural disaster. It wasn't an angry wizard's curse that emptied the city. It was the really harsh reality of 18th century life in India. If we look at the timeline, we can see how this tragedy built up over time. The city was brilliantly established in 1573, looking good. But over the next century, the ruling family shifted their focus to a newly built neighboring fort. Then, in 1720, Bongard was violently conquered by a rival king, which completely reduced its status to a secondary, forgotten town. And then the final, fatal blow came in 1783. A catastrophic El Niño event triggered the Chalisa famine, which was one of the most brutal droughts in the region's history. With the water supply completely wiped out, the surviving population had no choice but to literally abandon their homes and flee just to survive. Section 5. The Psychology of Myths. Why on earth do these stories survive today? It basically boils down to 3 really powerful reasons. First, human psychology. Our brains just naturally crave dramatic narratives. An invisible climate disaster forcing people to move is incredibly sad, but let's be honest, it's boring. A wizard cursing a city because of a rejected love potion. Well, that gives us a clear villain, a clear cause, and a really thrilling story to remember. Second, the local tourism economy absolutely depends on that India's most haunted tag to sell tickets and tours. And third, social media algorithms heavily reward paranormal claims. A video about the Chalisa famine gets a few views, but a Shiki video claiming a ghost literally drained a phone's battery in Bangar, that goes viral in seconds. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with an incredibly powerful thought from the brilliant scientist Marie Curie. The ghosts of Bangar Har aren't supernatural spirits trapped in stone. They're the result of low-frequency winds, our own deeply suggestible minds, and the very real primal fear of wild animals in the dark. So the next time you feel a chill down your spine in a dark hallway, will you let your brain invent a terrifying ghost? Or will you stop, take a breath, and try to understand the science behind the